All right. So 9,408 miles. You can do that a lot faster if you want. Like for instance, I looked it up today. You can get from Pennsylvania to Mumbai or Bangkok or Hong Kong in about 8,000 miles if you fly. But I decided to take a month to do it in my Subaru with my dog and one of my best friends. And we spent the last month, mid-June through mid-July of this year, traveling from here in my Subaru all the way out to California and meandering everywhere in between. So what we learned in that little journey, that not so little journey, is that 9,408 miles can be done. You can feel like you're rushing the entire time, even though you have a month to do it, because it's a lot of driving. And we covered 19 states, we covered 13 national parks, and we had a lot of fun. It took 30 days, and what we learned, like I said, was that you can do it slowly, or you can do it quickly. Like there are times, for instance, when you're driving through Nebraska, when you just want it to be over and you're like, this will never end. Like we are going to drive in Nebraska for the rest of our lives. But it did end, and you get to the more beautiful and the better. But sort of the moral of the story, a little teaser here, is that sometimes slow is good and sometimes fast is good. Like for instance, an example of when taking it slowly worked to our advantage. We were somewhere in the mountains of California, south of Yosemite, and we just decided to pull over at this little salt lake that my brother had told me to go to. So we pull over, and there's just this picturesque older couple sitting beside their canoe. They've just pulled out of the lake. They're like having snacks, and they immediately engage us in conversation and ask us if we want their snacks, and we're like, yes, we want your snacks. Who would say no to that? So we end up talking to them for like an hour, and it's beautiful and wonderful. And another example of slowing down is we had little cell service, I have to admit, and I was supposed to be doing like a job while I was out there, kind of like remotely, but you can only do your remote job if you have like good Wi-Fi or good cell service. So I kind of slowed down my job a little bit. So like that was another example. But like my favorite example for slowing down was also in California. We were driving through a little mountain town, and we were like, hey, let's get some coffee and like check out this place. But then we encountered barricades because it was the 4th of July, and they were doing a very beautiful, family-centered 4th of July parade. So we're like, cool, let's do that. So we end up sort of embracing the celebration and succumbing to it and sitting there and watching all the beautiful floats go by, and stumbled upon this church that was like handing out free hot dogs and ice cream. And even though like we're not poor college students, we were pretending that we were for this whole trip. So we were like, yes, give us free food. So that was awesome. But there were other times when taking it faster was actually better, and ended up being to our advantage. For instance, Nebraska. Have I mentioned that already? Yes, Nebraska. We wanted to go through that state as fast as possible. I'm sorry if you're from Nebraska, but it's probably why you're here, right? Let's be honest. Yeah, Nebraska. Speed through that state. Another example of sort of being in a hurry and like rushing through things was the one time that we decided to splurge on a hotel. We were doing a lot of camping and living cheaply, as I mentioned. And so we splurged in a hotel, and that day, confession, we may have blurred past our sightseeing activities because we just wanted to get to the hotel and like partake in the amenities because you're paying for them, and like, come on, like jacuzzi and like all those wonderful things. So that was an example of speeding through. But my favorite example of taking it faster and it working out to our advantage was in Colorado. We were out like in the west part of Colorado, and our plan for the day was to finish up sort of, if you're good at geography, you can picture this. If you're not, just play along. So we are north of the San Juan Mountains, and our plan was to camp that night in San Juan, or sorry, above, north of San Juan National Park, or National Forest. But instead we were like, hey, let's just like keep driving into the mountains. Like, that's a good idea. It's like getting dark. We should do that. Actually, it was my idea. So we do that because, you know, we like to be impulsive. And so we're driving, and it's like, if you've heard of it, it's nicknamed the $1 Million Highway. And it's beautiful. I mean, there's a reason it's named that, but it's also like terrifying if you're not used to driving like very tight switchbacks and like as it's dusk and there's no guardrails. So I'm driving, my friend is, you know, politely panicking in the passenger seat, occasionally squealing when I've like gone too fast or like taken the turn too sharp. And it certainly was not a fast lane. In fact, we were just praying that there would be nobody else because like, where would they go? Like, if we were there, where would they go? So we're driving along, and it's beautiful, but it's terrifying, and like the sky is orange and red and blue and black, and we finally get to a place where we're able to determine that yes, we can legally camp here in this national forest if we pull off to this little dirt road. So we pull off, we flip our Subaru into a bed, and we get ourselves all adjusted. We go to sleep, it's pitch dark, we've made it like just in time. And we wake up the next morning, it is stunning. It's like 6 a.m., the sun is like casting these gorgeous shadows against the mountains, and you're like feeling spiritual because there's nothing else to feel, and there's snow-capped summits and the green and just the shadows, and everything is wonderful. And you realize like we were supposed to speed up yesterday because we arrived here in order to sleep in this environment, even though we didn't even know what we were doing, and we woke up to this. And so the moral of the story is that sometimes it's good to speed up, and other times it's good to just take it slow.